尘世千古，方圆之间。与你棋逢对手，是。
Hello everyone, Be Natural here, and welcome back to another Wua video. As promised, today we'll be covering Changli's leaked kit, as well as drooling over her amazing animations. We'll be covering her base kit, gameplay, weapon, and team comps based on the information we know about her so far. According to leaks, Changli's banner is slated to be released during the second half of patch 1.1 after Jinxi's banner ends. She'll be a Phoenix-themed fusion sword user who deals primarily skill damage. Based on the current numbers, she can likely perform as both a main and sub DPS, similar to Dungeon. As always, keep in mind that this kit analysis is based off of leaked skill descriptions, which can sometimes be badly translated or vague, and the release version of the unit could be different. And once again, I'll be focused on reviewing the character, avoiding any story spoilers, to help you decide whether or not you want to start saving for her. Changli has two major concepts to understand. First, her main mechanic revolves around gaining and spending enflammement stacks. She can hold a maximum of 4, and at max, she can spend them all by using her heavy attack. Her second concept is that performing certain actions will cause her to enter a true sight state for 12 seconds. When in the true sight state, her next basic attack becomes a special true sight attack. TS attacks grant +1 enflammement each and are the main way she builds her enflammement gauge. Changli's kit has a lot of interaction with her basic attacks, so I'm going to break them down into categories. Changli's normal basic attack combo is a 4-part combo that swings her weapon around her, and the 4th part grants true sight. The animations look great, and the sound design for the final hit is just chef's kiss. Similarly, her normal mid-air attack combo is a 4-part combo that also grants true sight on the 4th part. When in the true sight state, Changli's next basic attack will become a special TS attack. TS attacks are gap-closing attacks that dash towards the enemy and provide 1 enflammement stack. These attacks are considered skill damage. If Changli basic attacks on the ground, she'll perform a TS conquest, and if she jumps or attacks in the air, she'll perform a TS charge. Conquest does deal more damage, but charge can be used to loop infinitely in her rotation, which I'll go into detail more later on. Changli's normal heavy attack performs an upward strike. Following it with a basic attack will immediately go to part 3 of her mid-air combo. If she performs a mid-air heavy attack or TS charge and quickly follows it up with a basic attack, she'll perform a plunging attack. Immediately following it with a basic will perform basic attack 3. If Changli has 4 enflammement stacks, using her heavy will consume them to perform Flaming Sacrifice, which scales with skill damage. Her skill also has a banger animation and ends with a plunging attack. The current wording is a bit unclear, but it seems like you'll be able to hold up to 2 charges of the skill, and 1 charge is replenished every 12 seconds. Using her skill puts her in the true sight state. Changli's intro skill attacks her target, makes her airborne, and also puts her in true sight. Her outro skill is a buff that provides a bonus 20% fusion damage and 25% resonance liberation damage to the next character you swap in. This buff is lost after 10 seconds or after swapping to another character. Compared to other buffs of this type, the duration is rather low, so if you're using her as a sub DPS, make sure you keep that in mind. Changli's resonance liberation is a moderately high damage nuke that deals damage in an area around her. Using her ultimate immediately grants Changli max enflammement stacks. The wording here is a bit confusing, but it sounds like her next enhanced heavy attack will get a 25% attack buff when used within 10 seconds of her ultimate. Changli has a passive that grants her 20% fusion damage and 15% defense ignore after she uses her enhanced heavy attack or ultimate. However, there's no duration listed on the skill, so it's very possible that these effects only apply to the attacks that activate them. To recap, you can enter true sight by using your basic attack 4, mid-air attack 4, your skill, or your intro. And you can gain enflammement stacks by using conquest, charge, or your resonance liberation. Based on what we know of her kit, Changli looks like she won't need to follow any particular rotation, but going in with a plan can help reduce the complexity of her kit. Whether you plan to use her as a main or sub DPS, The start of her rotation will likely look something like this. Start with intro, basic attack to use your TS charge, and attack again to follow it up with a plunge. Immediately follow your plunge with basic attacks to go into BA3 and BA4. Once your BA4 finishes, you'll enter True Sight, and then use basic attack to activate TS Conquest. From there, use your skill, then attack to activate TS Conquest again. Repeat this one more time, and finish with a 4-stack Flaming Sacrifice. Put simply, the main idea is to use TS attacks 4 times to max out her enflammement stacks, and use her enhanced heavy attack to expend them. Then, use her ultimate to immediately gain another 4 stacks, and use her enhanced heavy attack to expend them again. I'm not 100% sure whether or not you'll have enough energy for her ult at the end here, but given the long rotation, it seems very possible. At this point, if you're using her as a sub DPS, you'll likely want to swap off with your outro, and for those using main DPSs and like having more field time, you can certainly swap off earlier in the rotation after any TS attack as needed. Those that plan to use her as a main DPS and want to keep her on the field longer will want to loop the TS charge through basic attack 4 section until you get 4 stacks again. To do this, perform the TS charge into plunge, BA3, and BA4 like before. Once your BA4 finishes, jump to activate TS charge, and repeat until 4 enflammement stacks, and finish with Flaming Sacrifice. Of course, her best role and optimal amount of time for her to be on the field will depend on her animations, and unfortunately, we don't have all of them yet. Still, based on what we can see, it's likely that we can fit the entire initial rotation within the average buff window from support characters. Because her skill is the fastest way to access True Sight, and it recharges once every 12 seconds, she seems to lean slightly more towards being a sub DPS, but the fact that she can infinitely loop TS charge allows her to comfortably main DPS as well. Although nice, most of Changli's sequences don't seem to be quite as crazy as Jinxi's. Her S1 could potentially be very nice depending on the level of interruption resistance, and her S4 is a nice attack buff to your team. The S6 offers a 40% defense ignore, which sounds oppressive, but varies in value depending on the level disparity between you and the enemy. Furthermore, as a level 70 character fighting a level 100 enemy in tower, you'd only see like a 25% increase in damage from her S5, which is pretty mid when compared to other limited 5-star units like Yinlin, who get around a 35% increased damage with her S6. Combined with the fact that Changli's other sequences are also somewhat average, I believe that her sequences are probably not worth chasing, other than maybe her S4 to make her a stronger team buffer. Changli's signature 5-star weapon is Blazing Brilliance. It's an attack percentage weapon that also grants 8 to 15% crit rate, and has a unique effect that grants you stacks, which increase your skill damage per stack. When dealing damage, you gain up to 1 stack every half second, and when using a skill, you get 5. Each stack will increase the damage by 4 to 8% and can stack up to 14 times. Once you reach 14 stacks, you'll get the max 14 stack buff for 10 seconds, at which point the stacks will be consumed and you'll have to build up again. Conceptually, this is a great weapon for Changli. It offers high attack and crit, along with a massive increase to her skill damage, plus the stack should come quick since Changli gets 2 stacks of her skill. Unfortunately, I think unless you're planning to get the weapon to rank 5, you'll likely be better off with the standard 5-star weapon, Emerald of Genesis. The main reason is that the measly 8% crit rate that you get at rank 1 just doesn't compete with the 20 to 24% you can have with a proper crit weapon. Admittedly, while the 60% skill damage at max stacks is impressive, keep in mind that it is additive with elemental damage bonus. For teams, it depends on which role you're putting her in, but naturally, Verena or Baitsu will be her 2 support options. From there, if you're using her as a sub DPS, look to pair her with someone that benefits from her outro buffs like Encore or Chusha. Because her outro buff is relatively short, and her rotation takes longer than most other sub DPSers, she's not ideal for off-element main DPSers that like having more field time, such as Kalkaro or Jian. For those looking to use her as a main DPS, Taoqi's skill damage buff makes her one of the current best teammates for Changli. Alternatively, you can take a damage-focused off-field sub-DPSer like Yinlin or Mortefi, so that Changli can stay on the field and do her True Sight loops for longer. Yang Yang is an honorable mention since her outro generates more resonance energy for your ults, which also means you'll get more enhanced heavies. And that's everything from me. I feel like Changli has some of the best animations and physics I've seen in any action game, and in addition, I think the sound design of her attacks is just beautiful. If you like what I'm doing, don't forget to subscribe so you can see more of my content. Also, let me know what you think about Changli in the comment section down below, and whether or not you plan to pull for her. Thanks for watching, and as always, have fun and good luck with your pulls.